In 5 years, we won't be using VR controllers anymore, and that's a good thing. Holding controllers while playing VR is a constant reminder that I'm just playing VR in my room. VR gloves will bring immersion to a whole other level. I've had the opportunity to try 5 VR gloves that just blew my mind. They had pressure, force, haptic, temperature, texture, and if I hadn't gone to CES and AWE this year and tried them for myself, I wouldn't have believed that these VR gloves and controllers existed. Now, one of the biggest and coolest VR gloves that I got to try were haptics. So when I first tried the demo, the team actually put a very big backpack on me, which I believe weighed about 20 pounds. Turns out that that backpack is actually what powers the gloves with microfluid and pneumatic technology. Essentially, there is air that circulates through channels to inflate and deflate the tactile actuators on the palm and fingertips. And because of this, I was actually able to feel the difference between steam and droplets of water from a faucet in the palm of my hands. Now, I want to reiterate this point. Like, if you've ever thought about water droplets on your hand versus having your hand over steam, you know that the sensation is insanely different. So for me, like, this was a very mind-blowing moment. It's really something I wasn't expecting to experience when I tried this demo. So definitely this demo blew it out of the water, pun intended. And the gloves don't stop there. They actually also have a force feedback mechanism, which uses the same pneumatic technology. This means that when I was touching things in VR, like when I grabbed an object, it really felt like I was grabbing an object because there was resistance on my fingers. So yeah, these haptic gloves were the most realistic VR hands experience that I've ever tried. And what's crazy to me is that even though all of the technology that powered the gloves are in the backpack, there was pretty much no latency. Like, I was able to feel the experience as I was doing it. I don't know how much these gloves cost, but I'd imagine that they're probably one of the most expensive gloves, just thinking about the technology that goes into this. And let's address the elephant in the room. Obviously, you have this like 20-pound backpack on you, so it's not exactly accessible. I mean, for someone tiny like me, I don't think I could carry that 20-pound backpack around for a very long time while playing VR. And I don't know, it might have been heavier. It felt pretty heavy to me. So I think this was a really great experience just to see the potential and feel the potential of where VR gloves can go. But I don't think in its current state, it's quite ready for consumers yet. Now there's another glove with amazing force feedback that I've talked about in a previous video, so in my CES video, so that's the Sensegloves. So the Sensegloves actually have individual joints on your hands linked together with a wire. Then the wire is wound up and provides resistance when you try grabbing things. The experience that I got to try with the Sensegloves back at CES was the robot assembly line. So I was grabbing parts of the robots and drilling it together, and I could actually feel the vibration of the drill. So that was a very cool experience. And you know what else would be really cool? If you gave this video a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. Now, some of you may be wondering, so do these force feedback gloves actually feel like in real life? And the answer is no, absolutely not. I feel more like a cyborg when I'm using these VR gloves that have force feedback. I feel like, you know, they could definitely use some WD-40, but it's still a very cool experience. So I think it goes without saying why VR gloves are so important, but let's take a quick second to talk about it. I mean, for one, using VR gloves instead of like a controller just allows for a more natural interaction and input. And the ability to actually feel and interact with digital objects, it just really changes something for you. Now, some people may or may not notice, but the vibration, which is the haptic feedback that we're getting from our controllers, is a very important and key thing to our experiences. So basically, when we touch something with our controllers in VR, we feel this vibration or haptic, which is a confirmation to us in our brain that yes, we have actually interacted with this object. The alternative would be if there was no haptics, it's the equivalent of like walking up the stairs and then thinking that there's another step there, but there wasn't. So you kind of did this weird step thing. So, you know, it just feels like it feels less real if you don't have that response from the game. So bHaptics actually came out with a product to solve this issue. They came out with the Tactgloves. So the Tactgloves only have vibrations on the fingertips themselves. It's a very small, tiny glove that you put on your hand, and there's a vibration sensor on each of the fingertips. So I got to try this with like hand physics lab, where I was like petting a cat or picking up objects. The cool part was when I was petting the cat, I could feel like the purring vibration of the cat, so that was very cool. But when I would pick up an object, the lack of force feedback on the gloves made it odd. So for example, when you're holding a controller, like you have something physically in your hand, so you feel like you're holding something and the vibration comes. But with just the Tactgloves, it felt like I was trying to grab something and there'd be vibrations, but I wasn't grabbing anything. It was unusual. I think the Tactgloves can be useful in some instances. For example, if you're playing a guitar and you're strumming the strings on it, or if you're like playing some magic game where you're having lightning bolts come out of your hands. I don't think it's useful for experiences where you actually have to physically grab objects, because the lack of something to actually hold onto is a bit disorienting. The Tactgloves, I believe, are like $400, and I don't know when they're going to release, but we shall find out. Another VR glove that is also incredible, but a little bit imbalanced, was the Touchdiver glove by WeArt. And this glove is very, very special. It allowed me to feel temperature, pressure, and texture. The part that was imbalanced was that it's only applied to 3 fingers. So your thumb, your pointing finger, and then your middle finger. So the other 2 fingers don't have anything on it. And I believe this is due to like cost savings, but I'm not sure. But yeah, so your 3 fingers are actually sandwiched between this like metal plate and I guess something else. And so the metal plate will like clamp onto your fingers more and more as you're touching something. So it feels like there's actually pressure on your fingers as you touch something. And also these plates will like shift in angles and vibrations, and that allows you to feel the texture of something. So I could run my hand over something marble and feel like bumps along the marble. Now the other really crazy thing about these, like, I don't even know if they're called gloves, these fingertips, was that they had temperature. So for example, there was like a hot steam and a cold steam spout, and I could put my hand over the hot one and it would turn my fingers hot like pretty immediately, and then I put them over the cold one and it would turn my fingers cold pretty immediately. And honestly, I spent quite a bit of time going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, because what the F, right? Like, I did not think that anyone would be bringing temperature to VR. So that just, I don't even know how to talk about it. Very, very cool experience. Apparently HaptX also has temperature, but they didn't have it set up during the demo at AWE. But again, similar to the bHaptics Tactglove, the fact that these were only on 3 fingers was unbalanced. And also, I think if you were to buy it online, I think they only come 1 at a time rather than a pair. I also got to try Etee's VR controller. So these are not VR gloves, they are VR controllers. They're actually kind of like this knuckle thing. So you slip on these controllers onto your knuckles and your fingers are completely free, and it does finger tracking on the controllers. And apparently they're universal, and they're universal controllers that can be used with pretty much any headset. So it's really cool that you now have control over all of your fingers. Like for those using the Quest 2, you know that we pretty much only have 3 fingers in VR. So it's pretty cool that these controllers will allow us to use every single finger in VR. Overall, I thought that these like VR controller knuckles were pretty effective, but during the demo I did have some weird lag and latency and some weird tracking issues. I believe that this was due to like the Wi-Fi and the internet. They are just being crazy with all the amounts of vendors that were using it. But overall, I thought that they were pretty cool, and I would definitely use them. I like the fact that you don't have to hold anything and your hands are just totally free, and they were very lightweight. Now, of all these gloves that I mentioned, there's only actually 2 that's available for the consumer market. So that's the Etee controllers and the bHaptics Tactgloves. And while I'm sad that all these gloves are not available to the consumer market yet, I'm also hopeful. You know, the fact that these gloves exist and I didn't even know that they exist just makes me really hopeful that in the very near future, we will be ditching these controllers and going all in on VR gloves. Now, if you want to see some other really cool VR technology, make sure to watch my CES 2022 coverage.